If you're excited for this and other top 10 Heroclix videos, please thumb up this video. Welcome back, Heroclix fans. Today I'm going to cover the top 10 figures from 2012. We do have 2 honorable mentions, so we can place them at number 12 and 11. Mole Man is at number 12. Monster Mind Controller, Outwit, Pushable, and very cheap. The only downside is he's only really worth his points if you play him on a monster team. So if you want to use him, you can play him without a monster team and use the Phase-In and Outwit, and you get that for a couple clicks. But other than that, you know, he is going to be mainly on a monster team to get the full potential. But it's a pretty good figure for 47 points. Then we have Xavier at number 11. Relatively a cheap utility piece. It can attack, tie up characters, TK, Perplex, and Poison. The only downside is he's got a funky dial and it takes a lot of practice to use. You basically, on your start of your turn, you can click to anywhere on the dial, and then at the end of your turn, you go back to your first or your last click, depending on where you're at. Because on the first click, you can do it, and then your last click. But he's pretty easy to kill because on your opponent's turn, he's going to be on that click, and it's only a 16 toughness. So it's really one of those things where it takes a little bit of practice to get used to him, but there's some utility with him, and he doesn't take pushing damage because of the whole thing. So it's kind of pretty cool. All right, breaking our top 10, we have Cosmo. This is a cheap TKer with enhancement and the PD team ability. He's got 6 range with 3 targets. And then when you push him to his second click, he gets Mind Control, Incap, and Barrier. This is very useful for the points. He's only 52 points. There are a couple downsides. It is a short dial and is often an easy target. And he's not very pushable because he only has TK on his first click. So once you do that, you lose the TK. After that, he has the Mind Control, Barrier, and Incap for a couple clicks, but his stats kind of drop. In the second click, he has 18 defense with Barrier. That's kind of his sweet spot is if you want to use him for the Incap and Barrier. You can use the Mind Control 3 targets, which is pretty cool, but obviously you would add up all the characters you hit and you would take probably a number of damage for that. I like it. It's one of my personal favorites. And at number 9, we have Donald Blake. Now this is probably one of the best healers in the game, if not the best healer in the game. He is very pushable, and he can AE into a number of Thors, which would give him the ability to attack and do some damage. He does have some downsides. It's a very short dial, and he's really easy to KO, and he can't attack in the form of Donald Blake. So that's why if you want to use him as an attacker, you need to get him to his AE power and put him into Thor. But for the most part, 33 points for a really good healer, and he's pushable with the first 2 clicks with 11 attacks and then goes down to 10 attacks for the last 2. But not too bad, very useful for 33 points. So at number 8, we have Morgan LaFace. She has the +2 Perplex to Avengers keyworded characters, but she can't perplex herself. And the power on her defense is to pick either combat reflexes or energy shield deflection, and that's going to help her to stay alive. She is a wild card, so she can copy team abilities, and she can be used as an attacker and as a support piece. She's a real pain to knock out because of the powers that she has, and she seems to be cheaper than one would expect for the points and what she can provide on a team. Some of the downsides to this figure: she's only really good on an Avengers team. If you play her on another team other than Avengers or a team that does not have Avengers keyword, she drops in playability quite a bit because you can't use that +2. And she has a kind of somewhat of a funky dial where it goes between being an attacker and a support piece, and if you get hit for a number of clicks, unless you memorize her dial, you probably won't have an idea of what she is going to be at. And her defense power is outwittable, obviously, because she's not power cosmic, and if that power gets outwitted, she's definitely a lot less useful, and she could go down rather quickly with a naked 17 defense. She also gets a negative side effect if she gets attacked by blades. And here we have Odin at number 7. He's got a 12 attack with run and shot, 10 range, 2 targets for 5 damage with an 18 impervious, and he is power cosmic. Odin's sleep can keep him alive for a very long time if your opponent is not able to hurt him fast enough. He gets that Odin sleep, he gets a naked 19, but at the beginning of your turn, depending on how many tokens you have, you can heal up. If you have no tokens, you heal up 2 times. If you have 1 token, you heal up 1 click. And if you have 2 tokens, you don't heal at all. But it's a 19, so it's pretty good. But poison would knock him off because there's no damage reduction on that. Then if he gets hit past that and he's on his mid dial, he has Phase-In and Pulse Wave, which can really crush your opponent because of the power cosmic. You'll be able to Pulse Wave 2 times in a row, and it's really high damage, like 4 damage, and sometimes 5. So that's really devastating. He is very powerful and very deadly and is never out of a match no matter where he is on his dial. Some of the downsides to Odin is he's a non-flyer, so he can't fly over obstacles or terrain, but there is a good side to that he can be carried. Obviously at 250, he is kind of expensive, and at 300 points you're not going to have a lot to work with, but on higher point games he can have a lot of support to make him even more deadlier. Like I said before, in Odin's Sleep there is no damage reduction, so any kind of damage could knock him off of that. And there is no stop clicks on this dial, so there's no point on this dial where he would have to stop. He just keeps on clicking. And for 250, it is kind of expensive, but with run and shot and the high attack and damage and range can keep him alive for quite a while. And at number 6, we have Doctor Strange. This is a really good support figure. He gives adjacent characters energy shield deflection along with his perplex. Now this is friendly characters that he gives this to. He is very pushable. He's got 2 clicks of the perplex, 2 clicks of the probability, and 2 clicks of support, and then he's KO'd. So it's not a very long dial for 75 points, but it's pretty reasonable for the points. He also is a flyer, so he can carry other characters. He's got the Phase-In with 9 movement, and he's got 8 range with single target. So he can kind of post up and do some damage if he's needed. It's definitely not going to be attacker piece mainly, more of a support piece, but he can attack if it is needed. Some of the downsides to Doctor Strange is once he's in close combat with opposing characters, he goes down rather quickly because he has no damage reducers, and he's rather easy to hit with his low defense because energy shield deflection is not affected at close combat. But he does have the Defender's Team ability that can help him keep a higher defense or sustain a higher defense. But for the most part, his raw stats are pretty low for defense, and he is a high target because of the ability to give energy shield deflection to adjacent friendly characters. Deathstroke, Lady Shiva, and David Kane. Oh man, I'm wicked happy. This is exactly what I wanted. I wanted the Trinity. I wanted Deathstroke. Very nice.